2, 1, and we're live, John. And it's going on, guys. Sports nerds are back. Welcome to the weekly show that is messed up, but we love it. That's okay. Technical difficulties all the time, but it's all right.
What technical difficulties? This was very smooth.
I know, compared to what we usually do, you are correct, sir.
This was great. This was just like, hey, Anyways, sorry. Sorry.
All right. For those not seeing Elliot will not make it with us tonight, but we do have Mr. Derek Lofland, as promised on the show tonight to talk a lot of NFL football. Derek, how you doing?
Good. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Living
the dream.
Yeah. Before we get started, I want to do a little shout out to Mr. Ken Koslow for his Good Samaritan actions a couple of days ago that you posted, Ken.
Oh,
nice. I guess she was a young lady with a baby, I guess, in the store.
Yeah.
Tell us what happened. I mean, and she was having trouble paying for her groceries.
She had just moved here from California. Her dad had just passed away in California, and she was coming to Texas to get a new, fresh start in life. She just moved here this week, and she was picking up some things in Walmart where I was. I was in the pharmacy area, and she came up to me and gave me her story, and said she'd been looking for work, had not found anything yet. She'd applied for unemployment, had not heard anything, which is sadly not unusual for Texas unemployment. So
you should know you had a firsthand knowledge.
Yeah, I told her all about that. But she asked me if I could help out, and I told her I would gladly pay for her items. All she had was a few toiletry items and everything, and so we went to the cashier, and I pulled out my card and I paid for everything she had. And she was leaving. She asked me if she could hug my neck, and I said absolutely, because I always love those. And we hugged, and then she took the baby and left, and that was the last I saw of her. But
you had no reason to not believe her, because it's not like she had like $100 worth of groceries and she was asking for help.
No. It was, to be honest with you, it was a little more than $50. And
hey, Katie.
So it was. I felt good about it. I've been there and didn't know how I was going to pay for anything, so I've paid it forward before, and now I'm paying it back. So.
Well, and this year has been so rough on so many people, and you hear a story like that, and it's a sobering reminder that even though you can sit there and get kind of miserable in your own day-to-day challenges, that there are many people out there that have it way rougher than you ever imagined. So it's a great thing you did.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Really great, Ken. I wanted to point that out at the top of the show. I didn't put it on the rundown because I didn't want you to know I was going to do it. So
that's fine. But
Elliot and I talked about it yesterday when we were putting the show together, and it's like, you know what, I got to say something about it because it was such a good thing for you to do.
I appreciate it. Like I said, I told her that I just spent a couple of sessions in the hospital here lately, so I know how it feels to have money, not as much money as you need. So I'm totally down with what she had going with. And, I wish her the best of luck, and like I said, I left it in God's hands. So
good for you. Kudos, my friend. Kudos, very much so.
Thank you.
All right. With that being said, let's dive right into it. Mr. Derek Lofland, what were your thoughts on the draft?
I think we all said that before this draft that it started at pick number 3. We knew Lawrence was going to go 1. We knew Wilson was going to go 2. There wasn't much mystery there. Trey Lance at number 3.
Did that shock you? Did you think, or did you kind of feel like it was going to go that way? Because we didn't know, to be honest.
I never believed that Mac Jones was going to go there. I just didn't think Mac Jones was worth the draft capital that they gave up. So I always thought it was going to be either Lance or Fields. I kind of was leaning toward Fields. They went with Lance, and this is the type of decision that that Lynch and Shanahan are either going to run the Niners for the next decade and oversee a team that wins a Super Bowl or Super Bowls, or they join the unemployment line. Because if this pick doesn't work out, they've staked their entire fortune to this 21-year-old kid.
Right. And it could be, it could be another Carson Wentz, or it could be better. I don't know if he's got better talent than Carson Wentz does, but he hasn't played as many games in North Dakota State as Carson Wentz did. But he's got more, I think he's got more mobility than Carson Wentz, just a quarter, whether he can fit in because of his lack of experience.
I'm not real worried about the small school. Josh Allen played at Wyoming.
John just loves you for that now. There we go.
Yeah. I mean, really, it's more of a gamble, I think, to take the guy from Ohio State, in Fields, because Ohio State quarterbacks haven't done well in the pros. USC quarterbacks really haven't done well. Alabama quarterbacks haven't done well. The guys that have headed up those huge programs really haven't done well, other than Clemson. Deshaun Watson was on a stacked powerhouse team, and Baker Mayfield at Oklahoma, but I don't think he's established himself yet where we know that he's going to be a franchise quarterback for the next 10, 15 years. So right. I don't have a problem that he played at North Dakota State. I don't think what college you went to makes a huge difference with quarterback. It's, do you have the arm talent and do you have the mental ability to process the game and to play at the speed of the NFL game? And that you either have that or you don't. I don't think that matters where you went to school at.
Yeah, and I can see that.
I've noticed the Packers have signed like 3 or 4 quarterbacks here lately, including Blake Bortles.
Oh, I'm happy the Bortles machine is
the Bortles machine is in Packerland. Here we go. It's
I gotta just acknowledge someone in the crowd here, a Detroit Lions fan saying that they're gonna win the Super Bowl and like just totally circumvent all of the Packers, and the Bears, it's okay. It's okay, Nosy. We understand. And now he's smack talking my quarterback and my team. It's okay. So don't worry. The Lions fans are just sitting there where they're supposed to, just sit in the back. Okay.
Yeah, sit in the back of the bus and watch. Right.
Yeah, that's all. That's all the acknowledgement.
Oh, now he's smack talking me, John. See, the only good brownies are the ones going down the toilet. So I mean, he's just. Come on. Yeah, I know.
Never won the NFC North and 1 playoff win since 1957.
I seem to remember the game after that one. Well, after that win, they got their asses handed to them by the Washington Redskins the next week, if I'm not mistaken, back in the day.
They've only had Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson on their team in the past 20 years or something, man. Haven't done anything with them, but yeah, go Lions, yeah.
Katie, yeah, we let them on just because we feel sorry for him. Anyway, that's okay. But yeah, I mean, the Lions fan talking smack. I mean,
I know it's great.
I mean, come on, really? Yeah. Geez, God. Let us know how Jared Goff works out for you guys.
That's what I said to him in chat. Like, okay, Jared Goff. Okay, Jared Goff.
Good God. I mean, they had a good draft. I'm not going to say they didn't have a good draft.
I don't hate
but it is what back in the day. Katie says, I remember that game. Yeah, but it was in the early 90s, Katie. It's almost 30 years now. So, I mean, you were just a little kid, but that's okay.
My favorite moment. Well, one was the Favre touchdown pass against the Lions where they won in Detroit, and then the next year when they held Barry Sanders to the -1 yards. That's when the Packers and the Lions played 5 times in a calendar year.
Yeah,
I think it's the only time it's happened in the history of the league that played each other 5 times in 1 calendar year.
Oh, too funny. So number 4, Atlanta took Kyle Pitts. That's a great pick for them.
Yep.
He's not just a tight end. He's an overall weapon for them.
I don't know how much of an impact he's going to have this year, because if they trade Julio Jones, you're just replacing Julio with Kyle Pitts, and that's assuming Kyle Pitts lives up to the billing now, which is a big assumption with these draft picks. So I don't know if he's going to necessarily help them that much immediately if they make that swap. But I mean, everybody, he was one of the guys that just kept shooting up draft boards as he just showed he was a physical freak at that tight end position.
Yep. Bengals took Jamar Chase. Instead of going offensive lineman first, they went wide receiver. I mean, a lot of people were questioning that. I mean, they did get O-line, I think, further down in the first round, but they took Jamar Chase, which was a shock to me. I figured they'd go offensive line because, they got to protect Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I thought the Lions were the big beneficiary here because they would have gotten Sewell, and that's going to help shore up their line. And yeah, Cincinnati had one of the worst offensive lines in the league last year, and is a big reason why Burrow was injured before he completed his rookie season. It'll be nice to have a weapon like Chase, but is he going to have time to find him downfield if he doesn't have any blocking? I questioned whether that was the right decision there.
Yep. Miami went with Jalen Waddle from Alabama, which wasn't the Heisman Trophy winning wide receiver, and he actually sat out last year, but they took him and hit him over Devontae Smith.
Yep, and Miami's added some nice weapons in the offseason because Will Fuller is down there too, and he's really fast. And who knows, he might tear his ACL in week 2 and never be heard from again. Health has always been his big issue. He's also suspended, I believe, for the first game of the season for the PED issue last year. But if him and Waddle can stay healthy, Miami has got loads and loads of speed at the wide receiver position now.
Yep, and this is where Detroit got the benefit of it. Penny Sewell, probably the best offensive lineman in the draft. Oh, excuse me. The draft.
Yep.
I mean, this guy's a brick house. I mean, he's huge.
Yeah. Yeah. He's a monster offensive tackle that could be a guy you could build the team around, the offensive line around for the next decade. 6'6", 330 pounds. Got great athleticism for that size. I think that was. I'm not going to say it's a franchise-changing moment for Detroit because they've had a lot of those that haven't panned out over the years. But you got to start somewhere, and giving Goff time to throw the ball is going to be a big help.
I think he's already gone, John. So
I know. Right. I love the little dig you gave him, Derek, but I don't think he's here anymore. So
yeah. I think he dropped out after we started smacking back at him. Carolina takes J.C. Horns, cornerback out of South Carolina.
I was proud of myself with this mock because I had Horn going before Surtain II. I just had Horn going at 10 to Dallas instead of at 8 to Carolina. But I'm not surprised he went this high because Carolina's had a lot of issues in the secondary, and this guy is one of the 2 physical freaks at corner in this draft. So I think Carolina did very well here.
And then Denver did not take a quarterback. They went cornerback with Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, and you can't have enough cornerbacks when you play in a division with Patrick Mahomes and Justin Herbert. So this was a good pick, and I think a pretty safe pick. He played at Alabama. His dad was a corner in the NFL. He checked all the boxes as far as physical tools. Who knows if he's going to end up being a perennial Pro Bowler, but he's a guy that should be in the league for a decade. That's a pretty safe pick in my opinion.
I think it is too. I mean, so it just tells me that they're pretty set on Teddy Bridgewater to start next year in Denver.
Or they're gonna trade for a certain quarterback later this offseason.
A certain quarterback
that might be on the market
after June 2nd. Is that what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
We'll get into that later too, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Eagles take Devontae Smith, wide receiver, the Heisman Trophy winner.
Love this pick. The Eagles have had one of the worst wide receiver situations in the league the last couple of years. They've been forced to target tight end as much as any team in the league. Them and Baltimore have led the league in tight end targets and just no speed at wide receiver. They tried to sign Deshaun Jackson to fill that role, and he's just not able to stay healthy at this point in his career. So this gives him a vertical threat. And he played with Hurts at Alabama, so there's some familiarity there. Doesn't mean I would have picked him over a better player, but he was the best receiver on the board at that point, and I think a good fit.
There's a lot of this going around as far as players reuniting with their college quarterbacks.
Yes,
a lot of that in this draft.
Yep, Tua with Waddle and Burrow with Chase.
Yes.
Yep.
Then Chicago takes the big guy off the board, Mr. Justin Fields, my favorite quarterback in the draft, of course.
Yep.
And I think Justin Fields has the potential to break the mold of Ohio State quarterbacks doing well in the NFL. I really do. I think, in my opinion, he's probably going to end up being the best quarterback in this draft in the long run. That's my opinion. But I mean, I'm being biased, but I just feel it because how well he played at Ohio State.
I agree with you. He's got as much physical talent as any quarterback in this draft, and he has the talent to break the mold. Where I'm a little concerned with him is it seems like one of these shotgun marriages again between quarterback and and head coach, where Nagy, if he doesn't develop this Fields this year and they go 7-9, he's going to be fired. And now you're bringing in a second head coach. Maybe the GM gets fired. It's a new GM. And we've seen that where you get teams that they don't get the quarterback, head coach, and GM lined up at the same time. And the Chicago front office and head coaching staff is on the hot seat. They have been in the playoffs 2 of the last 3 years, but they haven't been able to fix the offense. And the Mitch Trubisky experiment flamed out. Nick Foles didn't work well in free agency. Then they signed Andy Dalton, and he's going to compete with Fields for that starting job. As long as the Bears make the playoffs this year and Fields looks good, then that should add some stability to the Bears, and I think it has the potential to be a good marriage. But you don't like a rookie quarterback having his coach fired right away. That can send the train off the track.
Do you think Fields starts day one, or do you think Andy Dalton gets the start?
I think Andy Dalton does get the start, but I've always said you can go with the veteran quarterback, bench him after the second or third week, go with the rookie, and it takes the pressure off him. If you go with Fields and they start off 1-3, and then you go to Dalton, you're destroying your rookie quarterback's confidence. So unless Fields looks like Russell Wilson did his rookie year in Seattle in training camp, where you're just like, wow, this guy can play right now, and he's clearly the best option on the field, I think they might sit him for the first couple of weeks, but I would be shocked if he doesn't have that starting job locked down by week 3 or week 4.
I love it that Katie's throwing all the Bears shade at us. I love it. She says we have to trust the Bears' proud tradition of ruining quarterbacks won't fail us, is what she's saying. She's a fellow Packers fan, so I want to give you the heads up on that. She is a fellow Packer.
Yep. Well, and that's the big question here. Allen Robinson is franchise tagged, and they really don't have a second wide receiver. Their line's been kind of shaky, and that also plays into it. They gotta shore up all those other areas. I think the misconception in Chicago is that the problem has been the quarterback, and that's it. It isn't. It's been the whole offense, the line, the receivers, the whole bit, and. He's going to help with that quarterback situation, but they can't just expect to bring him on the field and he's going to fix every problem they have.
Right. I agree. And this one's for Ken. At number 12, Dallas takes Micah Parsons at linebacker. I'm sure he's happy with that pick.
I am.
Yep.
I am indeed.
I thought Parsons was reminds me a lot of White down in Tampa Bay. He's that outside linebacker that runs a 4.4 40 and just has all the physical tools. I didn't think this was a need pick, but it really would have made sense for him to pick defensive back. I was looking, and Caleb Farley was the next defensive back, and he went off the board at 22. I think Farley at this point would have been a reach, and they were better off going with the talent rather than reaching on a player that wasn't worth the pick.
Right. Chargers take Rashawn Slater, offensive tackle, to keep Mr. Herbert in protected.
Yep, I had him going 10 in my mock to Dallas, and so I thought it was a good value there. And the Chargers had one of the worst offensive lines in the league last year. They needed this player to upgrade that position. Yep.
The Jets went with their second pick in the draft, second pick in the first round. They went Elijah Vera Tucker, a guard out of USC, to protect their new quarterback, obviously.
Yep.
So that was a good pick for them, I thought.
I saw him getting mocked anywhere between 10 and 24, I think it was, and a lot of the mocks. So it was a good value pick, and if you're going to draft a quarterback that high, give him some time to throw the football.
And they traded up with Minnesota to get that pick as well. So it seems like that was the guy they wanted when they did that. Here's the one: New England taking Mac Jones at 15 overall.
I love the pick.
I'm not sold on Mac Jones. I'm not.
I love the pick.
Okay.
Couple reasons. One, Nick Saban is Bill Belichick's former defensive coordinator in Cleveland, and Belichick loves Alabama players, and Mac Jones has played in a pro-style offense. So I think that helps. The other thing is you got Cam Newton there. There's no pressure on Mac Jones to play this year. If he's not ready in training camp, they can go with Newton early in the season. They've added a ton of weapons there in free agency. They're getting a bunch of defensive players back. I don't think Mac Jones has to carry the team here. Now, if he would have gone to maybe the Raiders at 17, or if Washington would have traded up, maybe I don't like it as much. But I think I think he's got the skill set to run a Bill Belichick offense, and he's not going to have to carry the team. And really, they had no other choice. There's no other quarterback with a first-round grade, and they could not go into this season with just Cam Newton. So they took the player they had to, and that's
right. Okay. Arizona took Zaven Collins, linebacker out of Tulsa.
They've really added to the defense with J.J. Watt now bringing Collins in. They're definitely trying to get faster, athletic, and more pass rush on the defensive side of the ball. So this is a good pick for him.
My Raiders take Alex Leatherwood, which was confusing to me. Was that a good pick for you think, or?
It was a need pick because I think they had, I want to say, the 24th ranked offensive line on Pro Football Focus. So they definitely needed some line help. But I saw a lot of mocks that had him going end of the first round, beginning of the second round. So I thought it was a little reach for the talent that was available. And I thought they needed defensive line help more than offensive line help.
But their defense was not very good last year. So, I mean,
no,
it's terrible. But again, this is John Gruden. You never know what's going to happen when you got John Gruden involved.
Yeah.
Miami took Jalen Phillips, an edge rusher out of Miami. That's going to help their defense. Their defense is already good, but that's going to help their defense even more.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, John, but that Miami defense is scary good. It's going to be scary good next year. It really is.
This is look at me worried. Yeah, kind of like how many points did we put up on them? What was it, 50 something or 40 something that like second last game of the season?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I'm pretty terrified.
I was a little surprised they didn't go running back here. They didn't really. I didn't think they took care of the job at running back, and I thought that was the one thing. They had a bunch of committee guys that could play roles, but I don't know if they really have a featured running back. And with Tua still early in his development, I would have thought Najee Harris would have.
I was going to say, especially with Najee out there, and of course it pissed me off that we fell to Pittsburgh. Of course, now we got to deal with Najee Harris for twice a year. And even ATN, yeah, would have been a good pick too.
A wide receiver, ATN.
Yeah, did you see that? Jacksonville's going to trying to make a receiver out of him, so that's what they've been doing in rookie.
Just going to drink my water.
Maybe Tim Tebow could help him block. Show him how to be a blocking wide receiver.
Jacksonville is must-watch football this season, just like this
especially
season.
If Tebow is actually signed. He hasn't been signed yet, but if he is signed, that'll be much more. Yeah. And if he makes the roster, God, it'll be a carnival show down there in Jacksonville. Washington takes Jamin Davis, a linebacker out of Kentucky.
I was a little surprised with this because they were so good on defense last year. I would have thought they'd wanted to add offense, but the quarterbacks were all gone at this point. I mean, this is the problem New England would have been in if somebody had jumped them to take Mac Jones. And so I think they just added their best available linebacker and figured keep building up the defense.
Giants take Kadarius Toney, wide receiver out of Florida.
He was going in all the mocks I saw in the first round, and they need more playmakers on the offensive side.
Daniel Jones needs all the help he can get, and because he doesn't really have a great receiver.
The Giants?
Yeah.
Did you see the news this weekend? There's a Kelvin Benjamin signing.
Yes, a Kelvin Benjamin signing. They're signing him as a tight
end. Which is something Bill's Mafia was saying that he should have been playing years ago. Anyway,
maybe that's why there's no fantasy production at tight end, because if you can't play football, I guess they just move you to tight end.
That's it. That's what they stick you at. Stand as a peg in the middle of the field and just do this with your hands.
Yes.
We're good.
The dude's huge. Yes. The Colts take edge rusher Kwity Paye, which was a great pick for them.
Love this pick. He's a guy that he didn't have that much production at Michigan, but he just blew it away in the combine with his 40 time and bench press and everything like that. So what I like here is Indianapolis already has a good defense, so he's not coming in there to be the cornerstone of the defense. He's going to pass rush.
Yeah, I would have loved to seen him fall to 26, but that was just me. Ken likes the pick too because he's a big, because he's a big Michigan fan, and he loves Kwity Paye. Kwity Paye was like the best player on their defense last year, and that was so. And that's saying a lot because Michigan had a bad defense last year.
Yes, they did.
Tennessee takes Caleb Farley, cornerback out of Virginia Tech.
I was a little surprised at this. They had I think 19 sacks last year. I think it was the second fewest by a team that made the playoffs, other than the 79 Broncos, I think it was. So I really thought they would go edge rusher in the first round. They do need secondary help too. Their entire defense needs a rebuild, but there were a couple defensive linemen that went just a little bit later in the draft, and I was surprised that they didn't take one of those.
Right. Yeah. Vikings take Christian Darrisaw, offensive tackle out of Virginia Tech. They traded up with Seattle and the Jets and Seattle and the Jets to move into the 23rd to get this guy. I mean, I don't know.
First round offensive lineman, and they have a bad offensive line, so it's a quality player at a need position. I thought they did a good job maneuvering the draft and coming away with him.
And the one that pissed me off the most was Najee Harris to Pittsburgh out of Alabama. I'm not looking forward to watching this. I mean, our defense is going to be so much better this year, so I'm not overly concerned, but I don't want to have to deal with Najee Harris. But it's a great pick for Pittsburgh, especially for a team that did not have a running game at all last season. And their guy went to I think Baltimore. I don't know. I mean, who was it? God, why can't I think of his name? The kid that survived cancer. Connor.
Oh, yes.
Connor.
Yeah.
Connor.
James Conner was hurt all the time. I mean, he had the one good year, but just too many injury issues. I think, again, the Steelers, I think, could have used the offensive line help. But when you look at the draft, the next lineman that went was Landon Dickerson down at 37. So I think they decided not to reach for the lineman that wasn't a first-round grade and come away with a running back that has all the tools to be a three-down.
Well, yeah, and you know what? I mean, especially when they have really no running back on their roster, this was an obvious pick for them, to be honest with you. I think it was an obvious pick. I mean, they could always get offensive linemen further along in the draft, but when you got Najee Harris staring at you right there at excuse me, at 24, you can't go wrong.
And I think Big Ben, might still be at a point where he can lead a team to a Super Bowl, but not if he's having to throw 40 to 50 times a game. They need that running game so that he doesn't have to do it all in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh's going to suck next year. They're going to suck.
No, they're not.
They're going to suck.
Yes, because they just specialize in losing records. And
they're going to suck. I'm sorry. They're going to be terrible.
As long as they suck on week one, that's all that matters.
And then Jacksonville takes Travis Etienne, the new wide receiver in their court.
Urban Meyer is a train wreck at the NFL level.
He should have stayed. He should have stayed on the panel on the network on Fox. Worry about college, Urban. You don't belong in the pros. I'm sorry, he doesn't belong in the pros. He's not going to
pick.
Huh?
What a dumb pick.
Yeah.
Anyways,
it was a good pick. It's just a bad idea to put him in a wide receiver.
He's a fine running back. There's nothing wrong with him as a running back. I mean, most of the mocks I saw.
That's all out of the backfield, yes. But not putting him in a wide receiver full time, that's ridiculous.
No, yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, he had a great career at Clemson. Most of the mocks had him going in the back of the first round or the beginning of the second round. I have no problem with the pick. I have a problem with Urban Meyer wanting to sign everybody and change positions on them as soon as they
Tebow and tight end,
and
wide receiver. Yeah.
Hear what they said when they drafted him? Like literally the day after, he was going to be the third string running back.
Yeah.
Like that's where they were slotting him. So now they're trying to save face and say, "Oh, we're going to turn him into a wideout." It's just like,
well, maybe Trevor Lawrence can play safety and move Robinson to linebacker. I mean, just think outside the box.
Punter, man, let's do it.
Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence kind of looks like a punter, doesn't he? With the with the hair and everything.
With the hair and all, yes. Yeah. And of course, my favorite pick. Actually, it wasn't the Browns' second round pick was my favorite, but the first round pick was good. Greg Newsome, the second out of Northwestern. This is a shutdown corner, and the Browns needed one. So I really liked the pick. I liked the other pick, the JOK pick in the second round, a little bit better because he actually was still there, and the Browns traded up in the second round to get him. But no, I mean, Newsome is going to be a beast. I mean, he's going to fit in very well. And I'm excited. I'm really excited about this pick.
Well, Northwestern played really good on defense against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship game. And it's because Newsome was one of the big reasons.
He had the best third down stats of any corner, I think, in college football last year, as far as what as far as his defensive stats are concerned. But he's a shutdown corner, and they needed one. We're going to get a couple of guys back from last year from injury. Gilbert and oh god, I forgot the other guy's name, but we're going to get Gilbert back, Gilbert back next season. I know I should know my own players. I know, John, don't say nothing.
What am I saying?
But yeah, I'm really excited about what the Browns have done in the offseason as far as their defense is concerned. They got 9 new people coming in on defense next season. So yeah, I'm excited about that. The Ratbirds, they took Rashad Bateman, wide receiver out of Minnesota, which they need wide receiver help because they got no receivers in Baltimore whatsoever. It's just a matter of Jackson is able to throw to them or not, because I'm not a big fan of his throwing ability, but that's just me. But they need the wide receiver help. I agree with that pick. I mean, he's not the best receiver in the draft, but he'll help him out.
I'm not a fan of Greg Roman. I mean, between San Francisco, Buffalo, and Baltimore, I think I was looking. They've been either 31st or 32nd in pass attempts 7 out of 8 years he's been an offensive coordinator. They're always one of the bottom 5 passing yardage teams. They've had a couple of years where they've had good touchdown production, but I mean, he just does not like to throw the ball. And so I understand part of it is Lamar Jackson has to prove he can do that, but I mean, they have an offensive coordinator there that takes the air out of the football.
John's not a fan of him either, I'm sure.
Oh, very, very, very well versed in the Greg Roman offense. I'm pretty sure if you watch some of the replays of Sports Nerd Show, 4 or 5 years ago, it was me screaming for the Bills to fire that SOB and get him the hell out of Buffalo, because just like you said, he doesn't throw the ball at all. It's just like 3rd and 14. Let's run it.
Thank you, Janelle. I just turned it over. The Bolts are starting.
Anyways.
The Bolts and Panthers are starting. So
and Bateman, because I grew up in Wisconsin, I'm a Badger fan. I watched him quite a bit at Minnesota. He averaged over 20 yards a catch a couple of years ago and was a big part of that Minnesota offense that did so well in the Big Ten. I like his ability, but E and I like to talk fantasy a lot. I don't think he's going to be much of a fantasy asset because I just don't think they're going to throw the ball enough. And look at Hollywood Brown. He came in as such an exciting big playmaker, and they don't get him the ball enough. And they're adding wide receivers, but they aren't changing offensive coordinator.
Janelle bringing back memories of Price versus Bishop. Holy cow. Anyway, Saints take Peyton Turner, defensive end from Houston. Their defense was decent last year. Do they need to take defense at this point?
They lost a lot of players just because they're in salary cap hell right now, trying to get back under. So I mean, they didn't need to take a quarterback because they got Winston and Taysom Hill and Michael Thomas and Alvin Kamara are locked up. They still have a pretty good offensive line. So even though the defense was good, I think it was best to try to add defensive talent there.
And your Green Bay Packers take Eric Stokes, cornerback out of Georgia.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good player. I mean, I don't think they necessarily reached. I really wanted them to take Rondell Moore, the wide receiver out of Purdue. That was a guy with 4.29 speed that if you would have put him in the slot next to Adams, I think could have been a difference maker on that offense. And they just neglected the wide receiver position again, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later in the
yeah. Once we get done with this, we'll get into that discussion. Yeah, okay. Yeah. And for Mr. Olson, Buffalo takes Greg Rousseau, edge rusher out of Miami.
I am Groot. A walking tree. And yes, that's his nickname.
The one thing I like that Buffalo did is, even though I've got to look at the stats again, I think they had 39 sacks last year. Their leading person for sacks had 5.5. It was not a pass rush that that really had that impact player, and they got some age going on the defensive line. Jerry Hughes is 32 years old. Mario Addison's 33. And so I thought they did a good job of addressing need and getting two nice players that they can develop to help get them over the hump. Because if they're going to compete for a Super Bowl, they need to be able to put pressure on Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson and the other good quarterbacks in the AFC.
The problem is that they blitzed a ton. They just never got sacks, and that was the issue. So you got Boogie Basham in the second round. You got Groot. Like they don't have to fit in this year specifically. You know, it was kind of like they can put them in slowly, but bang on. I mean, Addison's 33, Jerry Hughes is 32. Who's your pass rush? I mean, that was So I like the pick, but I don't know anything about the guy. I just know he went to the University of Miami. And his name is Groot. That's it.
His name is Groot, and you love it. Ravens take Odafe away, edge rusher from Penn State.
He was a guy that was getting mocked in the end of the first round, so I thought it was good value. And they need to make some additions on that defense, so they went with a defensive player after taking the wide receiver. So again, a team that addressed some needs here in the first round.
Right. And then finally the Buccaneers take Joe Tryon with the last pick in the first round, edge rusher out of Washington.
Yeah, I mean, this is a team that's bringing 22 of their starters back from last year's team, so they they're not making a lot of wholesale changes. So this is about developing players for the future when they're not able to keep all these guys around.
Right. Well, that was the first round, and that's where we'll stop. Let's move on to the next subject in hand, the elephant in the room, so to speak, the Aaron Rodgers saga. What are your thoughts and feelings on what the hell is going on in Green Bay?
Well, I think this is a repeat of the Brett Favre saga.
Yes.
From, back in the 07-08 season. Now, one thing I did is I went and looked at teams that had the most wins in the NFL since 1992, which is when, Favre first came into the league. New England's first, they're 105 wins, 159 losses. Pittsburgh's second with 294 wins, 168 losses, 2 ties. Green Bay's third, 293 wins, 169 losses, and 2 ties. And the Colts are next with 266 wins. There's a huge drop off.
That's the Manning Andrew Luck years, right?
That's the Manning Andrew Luck years. The other teams are Denver, Kansas City, Dallas, Baltimore/Cleveland. If you take the Baltimore Ravens with the Bill Belichick era kind of mismatched in there, they're 8th. Philadelphia's 9th. Minnesota is 10th. And so Green Bay has been.
That's Clarky.
Green Bay has been really, really successful since they brought Favre in there. And you look at those top 3 teams, the Steelers have had the best stability at head coach. They've only had 2 head coaches in that time.
Right.
Green Bay's had the quarterback stability with Favre to Rodgers. And then the Patriots have had the Belichick-Brady combo that dominated for 20 years. When the Packers started off with Favre and when Ron Wolf was there, they signed a lot of free agents. They brought in Reggie White. When they lost to Dallas in 95, they signed Santana Dotson. They signed Eugene Robinson, Sean Jones, Keith Jackson. They were aggressive players in free agency. And once Ted Thompson got there after Mike Sherman, the GM, was a disaster, they've really taken on this philosophy of building through the draft and not really spending a lot on free agency. And that's fine when you're a 25-year-old player and you got a lot of time. And I remember Packer fans were all mad at Favre, and they're like, well, Rodgers isn't going to do that to us. Rodgers loves the Packers. He's not going to have this ego that Favre had. Well, Favre was 37, 38 years old and couldn't wait to build the team through the draft. And now that Rodgers is getting toward the end of his career, they're not addressing wide receiver. They haven't really made a splash in free agency the last 2 years after doing a decent job in LaFleur's first year to help build the defense. And I think you have a player that, had a vision of winning multiple Super Bowls in Green Bay. And for all that regular season success they've had, the one disappointment has been just 2 Super Bowl wins in those 30 years. So I think there's some blame to go around on both sides. I think, Rodgers has done some things to alienate the Packers, calling the GM Jerry Krause, telling free agents not to sign there. Some of the ego he's had with his ex-teammates. But I also think Green Bay's to blame because they've had this organizational philosophy of being very conservative in free agency and not making the same. Look at what Tampa did for Tom Brady last year, and look at what Green Bay did for Aaron Rodgers last year. I think that tells you all you need to know about why he's frustrated and why he wants to go someplace else. It doesn't surprise me Denver's coming up because John Elway had a history with Peyton Manning of putting all the free agents he could around him to win now. And yes. I think that's what he's sick of in Green Bay is this always playing for next year.
How do you think this ends?
I think he's played his last game in Green Bay. I really do. I know that some of the teammates and ex-teammates have come around and said this is fixable. I don't really know how it's fixable, though. I think if all he wanted was a new contract, I think Green Bay would have tacked on a couple of years after the MVP season he had.
He's been. I mean, he hasn't really spoken first person to the public about the whole situation. He's been pretty quiet behind the scenes, but all the pundits and all of the analysts and all the Schefters and the Rappaports are all saying that he wants the GM fired in Green Bay. Pretty much is what he wants.
Yeah, and they're not going to do that. They're not going to do that. And they shouldn't do that. They shouldn't do that. The moment you go and do that, then the moment he doesn't like somebody else, he's going to complain about it. And you're going to be in a situation where your quarterback is running your roster.
Correct. Good point. Good point. So do you think that Green Bay pulls the trigger and trades him to Denver after the June 1st deadline?
I think the two most likely landing spots are in the AFC West. I think it's either Denver or it's Las Vegas Raiders.
Okay. All right.
Those are the two that make sense because Derek Carr, Gruden didn't draft him. Carr hasn't been able to take him to the playoffs. Aaron Rodgers would give them that franchise quarterback, and Elway hasn't been able to replace Peyton Manning, and they've gone through a ton of draft picks trying to find the answer, and they haven't been able to do it. And usually with these trades, it goes to the other conference. He's not going to go to San Francisco. They're not going to trade him to the Giants. They're not going to go trade him someplace where they have to face him in a playoff game. He's going to go out of conference. And if you look in the AFC, the two places that make the most sense to me are Denver and the Raiders.
So if there's a trade in place, I mean, do they go with the kid that they drafted last year as far as their starter is concerned?
I mean, I think they're going to have to because they've got Blake Bortles, and we've seen what Blake Bortles does. The only thing is Blake Bortles has played for Sean McVay, and Matt LaFleur is a Sean McVay disciple, and so I think there's some scheme familiarity there. They need somebody that can come in there and be a camp body and throw the football around. And if they have to trade Rodgers, he'd be a good backup to have for Jordan Love. But yeah, if you drafted Jordan Love in the first round, and this is going to be his second year on the roster, and they didn't really add anybody in the draft at quarterback. So I think, I think they are going to go with Jordan Love and see how that goes for him.
How good do you think
Derek,
he could be?
I got a question.
Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah. On a scale of 0 to 10, which 0 means no chance in hell and 10 means certainty, what do you think the rating is on Rodgers just absolutely calling it a day and retiring?
I think that's very unlikely. It costs him $50 million to do it. He's going to lose a bunch of money on the back end of the contract, and I think he'd have to return $18 million. I don't. The only way I could see him retiring is if he kind of played the game that Favre did with the Jets, trying to force a trade, but he doesn't have the same leverage with that. The Jets, they had drafted Sanchez that year, and there was a new head coach, and so Favre wanted to go to Minnesota, and he had to kind of keep playing that retirement game to maneuver his way there. I don't think the same dynamics are in play here, and he'd have to return too much money. I'd say on a scale of 1 to 10, I think there's probably about a 2 chance that happens as being very unlikely.
So Denver or the Raiders, which is your opinion?
Denver or the Raiders, and if you ask me to rate what's the chance of them going on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd say it's probably about a 7. I'm not saying there's no chance they can work it out, but Rodgers is going to have to make a lot of concessions if that's going to happen. He's going to have to,
and he's going to play disgruntled anyway. Even if he stays in Green Bay, he's not going to be happy.
Right.
Which that I'm not worried about. Favre played disgruntled in 2007 when they didn't get him Randy Moss, and he was mad at Thompson and McCarthy. Rodgers, I think, was disgruntled with the Packers last year and had that MVP season. So I think if Rodgers goes on the field, he's going to give it 110%. He's going to play at an MVP level. I can't see him doing like a James Harden in Houston, where he's kind of tanking games and going to the nightclubs to sit there and work his way out of there. I don't think that's going to happen, but It just depends. Can he get over this GM and can he get over him taking a quarterback? And I could see him holding out and not reporting for week 1 and saying either trade me or I'm not reporting. That I can see.
Yeah, it'll cost him money that doing that too, but that's
it will. But a lot less than retiring.
Yeah, correct. We got about a minute left here. Anything jump out at you with the schedule release this week at all?
Bill had a question though first.
Oh, sorry, Bill. What is your question?
He wanted to know Derek's opinion on this. He wanted to know his thoughts on Barmore to the Pats in the second round.
They got a lot of players coming back on defense, but they still need help there. And so I don't know if he's going to be a day one starter for him, but I think that they need to get younger on defense, and it makes sense. It's another Alabama player, and that's what I was talking about earlier. Is that with Saban having been the defensive coordinator for Belichick in Cleveland, they've kept a very good relationship over the years, and he loves his defensive players. A guy that ran a 4.93 40 in the draft and had a good college career there. I think he's going to contribute in his rookie year with a chance to be a starter in a year or two.
All right. Anything on the schedule that kind of jumps out at you as far as what you saw as far as release on the schedule? And again, you and I have the same opinion. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, the schedule's really overrated to me in a couple aspects. One, you'll get people that'll look at the schedule and they'll be like, oh, they got to play 6 teams that won 10 games last year. They got closed the season with 8 playoff teams in their last 10 games. But the playoff teams, usually only half of them make it in their the year after making the. If you make the playoffs in 2020, the chances of making it in 2021 are about 50%. And so we've seen it all the time where you'll get to next year and all of a sudden you're at week 8 and you thought you had a difficult schedule and you have an easy one. Plus injuries always have an impact. The things I look at is when is the bye week. I thought that helped Brady last year, having that bye in week 13 because he's an older player and it gave him a nice break at a good point in the season. And then I look at cold weather or warm weather teams having to go play in cold weather, because if you have 3 or 4 games at the end of the year going to Green Bay, Cleveland, Buffalo, some of these colder weather, windier cities, that makes a difference. But I think the schedule release is really overhyped.
Right. And I mean, one thing that I looked at was, number one, the Browns have to open up with Kansas City, which is brutal. Number one. Number two, we have to go to Lambeau on Christmas Day. Going to Lambeau on Christmas Day is going to be also brutal, but that's, and they've got, what I thought was odd also, from my perspective, is that they got a back-to-back against the Ravens between a bye week.
I saw that, and then back-to-back road games against Green Bay and Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
and that could be tough. The other one I thought was weird is I think it was the Giants. I got to look here. No, maybe it was Washington. It's Washington. They closed Dallas, at Philadelphia, at Dallas, Philadelphia, and the New York Giants. So they have 5 straight divisional games to close the season, with 3 out of the 5 on the road.
Jesus.
Yeah, that's tough. And that's the other thing I look at is where do you get the divisional games? Like, one thing I love about Green Bay's schedule this year is they get Minnesota at home in week 16. And that's always good, getting a dome team outside like that in the cold. Yeah.
You like to say you like the 17 games this year?
I mean, we've talked about that before. I'm not a huge fan of it. I like the 16 games. I don't think you can sit there and say that you're for player safety and then want this extra game in there. But I mean, I'm a football fan, and I'll take the extra week of football. I just hope we don't get in a situation where we've got so many games and so many playoff games that we're going to have 2 backup quarterbacks playing in the Super Bowl,
right?
Because nobody can make it to the end. It's also going to be interesting to see if some of the teams with older quarterbacks sit and rest them against teams from the other conference at the end of the year to buy a bye week, like with Brady, for instance. If he's kind of a little tired, you sit him week 6. I guess it would be week 17 against the Jets at the Jets, especially with that being an out of conference game against a weaker opponent. I kind of like what the Spurs do in the NBA. I wonder if we'll start seeing that in the NFL if they keep expanding the playoff field and keep expanding the games.
All right, I'm going to bring in Ron. He's waiting. He's sitting there waiting in the lounge here. I'm going to bring him up.
Did you want to talk Julio real quick? Or?
Yeah, let's do Julio real quick.
Yeah, that was one of the more interesting stories too. Is they're talking about trying to save $16 million. Hey, Ron. They're trying to talk about saving $16 million on the cap and sending him out of there. Indianapolis is the team I'm hearing that's the most likely landing spot for him, which would be good for Carson Wentz. When we were talking about Green Bay, that's another way they could make it up to Aaron Rodgers. What if the Packers went out there and traded for Julio Jones, gave him Julio and Devontae, and put some money on his contract? If you're going to mend fences, that might be a way to do that.
Yeah, I mean, it might be a way. I mean, they just got. I mean, with who they pick up in the draft, it's not going to be a big replacement for Julio, but Julio's getting long in the teeth again. Like you said, Atlanta's having cap issues, so they may need to unload that cap money just to unload him to save that cap money, I guess you could say.
Yep.
It's a very intriguing situation with Julio Jones, because one of the best receivers ever to play the game, in my opinion, is Julio Jones. And Carson Wentz would benefit having him on the roster as well, as far as leadership and being able to groom him as well, help him out, help him along as well. So
yep. The only question at this point is health. He kind of broke down last year and he's 32 years old. Right. Usually receivers can go to about 34 or 35, but look at Andre Johnson. He had those great years in Houston, went to Indianapolis and was nothing.
Right. Right. Well, Derek, thank you very much for coming on tonight. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks for having me. It was great talking football with you guys. And until next time.
Yep. All right. Good luck on your real estate issues. Hopefully you can get something figured out soon.
It'll take care of itself. I'm not too worried about it. So.
All right, good. All right. Well, you take care of yourself. Take care of the family. I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds good. Talk to you later.
All right.
Later,
Mr. Ron Gallo in the house.
Hey, can you guys stall for like 2 minutes? I got to run and get the other headphones. These ones here aren't working.
Yes, I can do that. Go ahead.
Thanks. I'll be right back.
While he's running off, guys. A couple things I want to cover, John. First, the playoffs start with the NBA this week.
Meh.
I know, because the Raptors aren't in it. I know you're not happy with it.
Meh.
And the Mavericks aren't in it. So, but Lakers, Warriors. Again, we talked about this last week. That's an intriguing matchup, 7-8 matchup. Lakers still have a chance to get the sixth seed. But if they don't, they're going to have to face the Warriors. So, that'd be an interesting game. I'm just saying.
Did you say the Mavericks didn't make it?
The Mavericks, yeah, the Mavericks. I'm sorry, the Mavericks are in. I apologize. I'm sorry. They did make it. I apologize. Luka is just a freak. I love watching Luka play. Yeah. I love watching him play.
He is incredible.
I like the Jazz's chances. I also like this. The 76ers get the number 1 seed in the East. Let's see if they can do with that with the key. And then finally, 2 things. The Dodgers signed Albert Pujols yesterday. Who'd have thought that was going to happen? John doesn't care.
Well, if you're talking Vlad Guerrero Jr., now we're talking. But I don't care about a guy who's – how old is he? 75 now, I think? Why is this even news? Anyways, sorry.
Yeah, Janelle, I saw it. They're going to kill each other. You're right. We're talking about the Panthers and the Lightning. Yes, they're going to kill each other. They don't like each other, Janelle. It's a proven fact. The Lightning and the Panthers do not like each other. And then finally, Oakland has been given permission by MLB to look at relocation. And the odds are that they're going to look at Vegas if they don't get a new stadium in Oakland. A's have been a staple in Oakland for how many years now? Since 68? 68?
Yep. 60. That's, what do you think? 60, 67, I believe.
Well, the Oakland Coliseum has been in place in 68, and the A's have played in there the entire time it's been there. So
it's been a toilet for the last 40 years.
Yeah.
Where do you think they're going?
Well, the odds-on favorite is Vegas at this point. They're going to follow the Raiders to Vegas.
Well, it kind of makes sense. Vegas has all of a sudden become one of those epicenters. Everything's being drawn right into it.
Well, Oakland's in danger of losing 3 major sports franchises in a span of 4 or 5 years. So, because Golden State moved over to San Francisco, and the Raiders are in Vegas now, so they stand to lose the A's as well.
Or Oakland.
Yeah.
If they're gonna move to Las Vegas, they better build a stadium that's got a dome or a roof on it, because playing in Las Vegas in the summertime is going to be impossible.
Yeah, you get 110-degree heat in Vegas.
110-degree heat
At night.
At night.
at night. Exactly.
Yeah.
I do know that there's huge desire, let's call it salivating, going on in Vancouver, British Columbia right now. They love it. But I don't know that Vancouver is necessarily big enough yet. I mean, they're well entrenched with their NHL team. They've got a farm team for baseball. They've got lacrosse. They've got soccer. You know, they do have a lot going on, but they don't base it out of Vancouver. They base it out of suburb cities, the most common being Langley. So if you're doing that, I think you run the risk of not having a big enough fan base.
Janelle, bring back the Expos. Yes, we all want the Expos back in Major League Baseball. Janelle.
I'd love to see Montreal back, and I'd love to see Vancouver get a team too. Like, I think it's actually a little depressing that the Grizzlies left Vancouver. Like, Vancouver is a kick butt place, man. Like, it is an amazing city. It is very big, a lot bigger than I thought it was. I actually went there first time. I was there in '86, but I don't remember anything. But I was there in 2000. Yeah, I was there for Expo '86 with my dad, and I didn't know what the hell was going on. But Vancouver's awesome, man. Like they should have squads, and think of the rivalry you'd have with like a Seattle. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Anyways.
You guys
all these teams are doing is fighting each other, Ron. All these teams are all doing is fighting each other on this in this game.
Florida just scored.
Oh,
Where is Vancouver's minor league baseball team playing right now?
Where are they playing? Nat Bailey Stadium. They do play. That is one of the ones that is being played in downtown Vancouver.
Okay.
All right. So
we might as well jump into it since Florida has just opened up scoring against Tampa Bay.
You just ruined it for me, Ron, because I haven't seen the score yet.
Well, there you go. It's 1-0. Florida scored on the power play.
There it is, right there. Yes, I just saw it. I just now saw it, so I'm that far behind you.
How's
all right.
Possible? You're 3 hours ahead of me.
I know. I don't know. Maybe it's my streaming. I don't know what it is. Goal didn't count. Janelle said.
Let me say something about the playoffs right quick. We've had 3 playoff games right now so far, and all 3 of them have gone to overtime.
Yeah.
So that was
top seed has won 2 of the 3 earlier today. Minnesota. I'm going to say Minnesota had the better chances, but I think I'm still going to write it off as a bit of an upset to get game 1 against the Las Vegas Golden Knights in Las Vegas. Marc-Andre Fleury was absolutely unreal. He made huge stops. When you guys get a chance, I hope that the American-based highlight packages that you guys get to see, I hope that they do Marc-Andre Fleury a little bit of justice. Hey, while I'm using his name, trivia: the only NHL goalie to make 15 consecutive postseason appearances, Marc-Andre Fleury. That happened tonight.
Well, and again, he and Robin Lehner just won the Jennings Trophy as the best 1-2 combo in as far as goalies are concerned.
Yeah, you know, the thing with Minnesota that I watched and I saw, I mean, yeah, they did have some great scoring opportunities, but they absolutely shut down Las Vegas. The shots on goal heavily in favor of Minnesota. They were blocking and stopping and deflecting all of the Las Vegas shots. They were not giving up any opportunities in front of Cam Talbot, and Cam Talbot had an opportunity to see everything. His saves were not of the spectacular variety, but certainly you got to give credit where credit is due. Here's 2 goaltenders that go scoreless through regulation time, and Minnesota ends up winning it in overtime.
I saw Fleury make 3 or 4 saves that reminded me a lot of Patrick Waugh because he just snatched them out of the air. Just
you know what?
He looked like a shortstop.
He's from Montreal.
Yep.
He grew up idolizing Patrick Waugh.
Exactly.
it's very, very clear who he has modeled himself after. Without question, Patrick is the reason why Marc-Andre Fleury is as good a goaltender as he is, without actually ever coaching Marc-Andre Fleury. But just the influence and the impact in the game that Patrick Roy had, he had on Marc-Andre Fleury growing up as well.
All right. Looking at the playoffs now, I want to get your feeling on what series is going to, or you're looking at, besides the Habs series against the Leafs, and we'll get into that in a moment, I'm sure, between the two of you.
Well, on this one here, I'm just only because you brought it up, and I'm just going to say one little sentence, and then yes, well, let's run down how the playoffs are going to work this year. This format is stated that it's going to go away, but you talked about the Maple Leafs and the Habs. It will be a monumental upset and an implosion in Toronto of unprecedented proportions if they do not get through the first round. Hell, it will be bad if they don't get through to beyond the conference finals.
Well, John's hoping for that Leafs-Oilers semifinal right there. He's hoping big time.
Yeah. I wouldn't care who won.
That's what I said in my video last night. He didn't care. He's going to sit back and just relax with a cool.
You guys go to overtime every single game. I don't care who wins. Go ahead.
So right now, I mean, obviously for John and myself, it's easy to talk about the North Division. I'm going to leave that one till last.
Okay.
I'm going to start out east. I'm going to start with I'm going to start with the division that's actually had both of their series already underway and played in game one. And that of course is the Mass Mutual East division, where and the New York Islanders came out as the 4th seed. What's interesting about this particular division is that the New York Islanders are actually the favorite.
Yeah.
And when you look at the New York Islanders, I mean, they had their difficulties. They've had their struggles through 56 games. They finished with 71 points. When you look at their goals for and against, they're plus 28. That's not tops. Pittsburgh Penguins are tops at plus 40. In fact, they are tied with the Washington Capitals as the 4th best in the Mass Mutual East Division. The Boston Bruins are on top of that. So the New York Islanders, to be billed as the favorites in their series against Pittsburgh Penguins, feels like it's the only one that's kind of giving you those Las Vegas odds to go and do something. Because on paper, the New York Islanders should not slip past the Pittsburgh Penguins. But just about everybody that's talking about this matchup, this series, is going with the New York Islanders over Pittsburgh. I've kind of got a soft spot for the Pittsburgh Penguins. I'm saying that they are going to be able to do it in 6 games, but it's certainly not going to be easy. And Pittsburgh is already down 1-0. The New York Islanders win it in overtime earlier today.
Yeah. What I found odd about the playoffs is technically the regular season hasn't ended yet.
Oh, yeah, that was one of the things I was going to talk about. John's probably enjoying this just as much as anybody else. The weird thing is, and I think that this all goes back just to satisfying the sponsors, but you guys will remember that the Vancouver Canucks had a really long layoff where they were shut down due to COVID. So they have 3 head-to-head remaining against the Calgary Flames. Both of those teams are out of the postseason. They can't make it into the postseason. The Scotia North Division is still a little bit in a stall mode. They don't get their first round started until Wednesday between Winnipeg and Edmonton, and Thursday will be Montreal and Toronto.
Yeah, I noticed that. I'm like, why are they waiting until Thursday? Then I realized, okay, because there's still some regular season games to be played up there because of that. Yeah.
The interesting thing is though Vancouver and Calgary don't impact those playoff games, but it's just so weird. When you look at the schedule right now, there was a regular season game played yesterday at the same time that Boston and Washington opened up the postseason. The Vancouver Canucks ended up winning and defeating the Edmonton Oilers by a score of 4-1. Don't write anything into that. The Edmonton Oilers They did field a pretty solid team and all the rest of it, but they're not going to run the same risk that the Winnipeg Jets ran into earlier in the weekend, where they end up losing 2 key members of their roster. So the Winnipeg Jets are actually heading into the postseason, hoping that they can get their 2 injured bodies from the previous night back into the roster so that they'll be semi-healthy when they take on the Edmonton Oilers. So the Edmonton Oilers, they also get a little extra rest. They had nothing to gain and nothing to lose by winning or losing to the Vancouver Canucks. And credit to the Vancouver Canucks, this could have been a complete yawner. And the Vancouver Canucks made it a very interesting game. Thatcher Demko was exceptional between the pipes. And that's how you kind of want to end the season. Now, I know they still have 3 games against Calgary, so they're still going to have to do a little bit more. But it's so interesting because at 10:30 Eastern tonight, Calgary is in Vancouver to play the Canucks, and that's a regular season game. And as you know, we've already played 3 games, and we're playing a 4th in the postseason right now. And then on Tuesday, Calgary plays Vancouver. And then on Wednesday, they go to Calgary, and Vancouver plays Calgary to finally finish up the regular season. And by that time, you're going to have 2 games played by most teams. The weird and the bizarre thing, the Scotia North Division doesn't start until later that evening. And as I mentioned, it'll be Winnipeg and Edmonton on Wednesday night, 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock here in the West Coast. And then on Thursday, the original 6, this thing here is a thing of history. This is Montreal and Toronto. In Canada, there is no bigger game than when the Maple Leafs and the Montreal Canadiens are playing each other. This is one of those games where you have probably a huge 50% fan base all across the nation cheering for one or the other. And you look in this room right now, here's John, obviously cheering for the Toronto Maple Leafs, and me, I will be cheering for the Montreal Canadiens, but I'm going to go back and I'm going to say what I said before. If Montreal gets even more than, give them 2 wins, but if Montreal gets more than 2 wins in this first round matchup against the Toronto Maple Leafs, I think even that will be a major disappointment for Toronto Maple Leaf fans.
Oh, are we throwing shade?
Dude, but
the Montreal Canadiens.
okay, first of all, for all the Montreal guys, Ron included, I don't hate Montreal. If Toronto and Edmonton weren't in this North Division, I'd probably be cheering for Montreal over any other team in Canada. I don't hate the Canadiens. I hate the Ottawa Senators. I hate the Calgary Flames. That's who I can't stand. You know why? Because Montreal fans, and I salute you, Army, even though you're saying my team sucks, are passionate and loyal and will stick with the team no matter what. That's what Montreal fans are. So
it's true. It's very true. Montreal has got a solid fan base. Montreal does their history up right. It's got to be a sore point for both teams. I mean, you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, they haven't hoisted the cup since 1967. You look at the Montreal Canadiens, and they're trying to say that they're the winningest team in the in NHL because they've got 24 Stanley Cup trophies, but they haven't seen one in close to 30 years. So,
there's anybody else in Canada.
Yeah, but the point is that, if you're looking at history, it's like past performance in stocks, and you're not going to necessarily expect to see the same returns. What you need to be able to have a team that can get it done. And right now, the Toronto Maple Leafs, they can get it done. The Montreal Canadiens have absolutely no proof since when they came back from their COVID timeout. They came back and they won the first game, and that was it. After that, they have struggled to get any kind of real points. They were missing Brendan Gallagher. They're still missing Jonathan Duran. They were missing Shea Weber. Shea Weber is expected to be in the lineup. Carey Price was out with a concussion. If Carey Price is not between the pipes, the Montreal Canadiens have no hope, have none. Brendan Gallagher is a little spark plug. Time will tell to see whether or not he can get the job done for the Montreal Canadiens later this week in round one. But you look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, they're solid, they're healthy from top to bottom. Their goaltending is, without question, is maybe. I know that Marc-Andre Fleury and Robin Leonard picked up the Vezina Trophy or the Jennings Trophy, but the Toronto Maple Leafs have had some very, very good depth in between the pipes.
You know what's missing from these playoffs, real quick? You know what's missing from these playoffs?
What's that?
Like the Dallas Stars?
Doc Emmerich.
Yes, definitely.
Doc Emmerich is missing.
Doc Emmerich, we're missing the Dallas Stars.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, the Stars. No, who cares?
Well, we'll talk about the Dallas Stars in a second. I just realized the image that I have in the background there is wrong. It's got Tampa Bay taking on the Nashville Predators. Of course, Nashville's taking on Carolina.
Yeah, wow, that's an old. That must be an old one then.
No, it's correct.
Well,
I got a question on.
The Winnipeg and Edmonton.
Yeah, no, I'm going to get rid of that. The only one that's right is the North Division. The only one that's right. Bizarre.
I know that the Maple Leafs beat Montreal to win the 1967 Stanley Cup. Have they beaten them in a playoff series since then?
Who beat who?
Toronto beat Montreal in the 67 Stanley Cup Finals.
They don't meet very often simply because of the way the divisions line up. With those two teams being out east, typically one or both of them have already hit the links before they could potentially play one another. Toronto's been, it is true, and Toronto's played the Western teams obviously more than they've played the Eastern Conference teams. I do know that like 1971 was the last time those two teams met in the Stanley Cup Finals in 71. But of course, since then, that's when you've got all the reconfiguration because you added all those extra teams and you made all of the division changes. So to see those two meet in the finals, never going to happen again. Not the way that the current makeup is, and certainly being in the North Division. I mean, here it is in Canada. One of the premier matchups is happening first round. Never heard of before. The interesting thing is that one of these two teams is going to go on to meet either Edmonton or Winnipeg, and then one of those teams is going to end up in the conference championships. So they're going to be down to the final four. So Canada is going to have a team in the final four. Right now, maybe it's time to hear from Jon because we're still in the North Division, but let's real quickly talk about Winnipeg. There's one name that rings throughout this series, and the name is Connor, but it's not just because of Connor McDavid. There's also Connor Hellebuck, the goaltender for the Winnipeg Jets. But Connor McDavid, like Austin Matthews, especially Connor McDavid,
Look at Jon's fanboy going. He's just a fanboy with both those guys, man. He loves them both.
I want to hear the Connor love and then the Leon Draisaitl love after.
Okay.
I was never a huge, like in retrospect, it was a mistake on my part, but I never was a huge fan of Gretzky simply because I never cheered for the Edmonton Oilers when I was a young kid. But when you look at the Edmonton Oilers back then, you had Wayne Gretzky, Mark Messier, you had you had so many that just helped set up Wayne Gretzky, and Wayne Gretzky helped set up. And now what you're dealing with is you're dealing with an Edmonton Oilers team that has finally produced a couple of lines that can make a huge difference in the in an impacted game. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Darnell Nurse. You can go just about down that roster. I mean, they're so deep. A name like Jujhar Khaira ends up coming up into the bubbles up to the top as well. And Jujhar Khaira is not much more than a fourth line grinder. But again, there is a saying that defense will win championships. I don't think that's the case with the Edmonton Oilers. I honestly think it's going to be the slick hands and the fast feet of Connor McDavid that wins that first round series and carries Edmonton a lot farther. I think Edmonton comes out of the out of the Scotia North Division.
I'm not going to complain. Sorry, Leafs fans. I love you, Leafs. You're my number one forever and ever, but I'm okay with Edmonton going to the Final Four.
Yeah. And again, we'll go back. We were supposed to spend a little bit more time in the East. Pittsburgh loses to New York. Saw the game between Washington and Boston. Washington, Alexander Ovechkin aside, love him or hate him, you know what? He is a solid player. He will hit, he'll crash, he'll bang, and he will blast a shot through you to make something happen. In game one, he actually ran over his own player, but that ended up sparking the entire team. Mm-hmm. The thing that I'm worried about with Washington is they've ran into some goaltender issues. So
yeah, I saw that.
Yep.
So they had the oldest goaltender at 40 years old end up picking up a win yesterday because, and it was interesting, but Kelly Rudy really gave it to, I'm forgetting his damn name now, but the Russian goaltender that started ended up pulling a hamstring. And Kelly Rudy gave it to him for 5 minutes in the first intermission and said that as an NHL goaltender, you cannot set yourself up for failure and your team up for failure by not stretching properly. You're an NHL goaltender. You're not to get hurt because of a failure to stretch. If that means you stretch 8 times through the day, you stretch 8 times through the day. You come prepared not to be injured. It's different if you got run over, if you get hit awkwardly or something like that, but this is not the case. This was him being almost out of position and having to kick his right leg over, and he pulled his right hamstring. So Kelly Rudy really gave it to him last night in the first intermission. And credit to Craig Anderson coming in relief position and having a solid outing. He did allow 1 goal, but Boston tried to jump on it and was unsuccessful at coming away with the victory. Holy crap, it's 3-0 Florida.
No, it's not. No, Boston, it's not. It's 1-1. Get out of here.
Boston. Sorry, 2-1. There you go. It's 2-1.
Oh, great. Thanks for spoiling it, Ron.
Boston has changed their game plan a little bit, and it may have actually got into Zdeno Chara's head. And I'll talk about Zdeno Chara in just a second. The Boston Bruins are perhaps one of the strongest teams shorthanded, but they also have a great deal of respect for their opposition, and they have started to play an extremely disciplined game. One of the best shorthanded goal scorers is Brad Marchand. One of the worst offenders to end up in a penalty box for a stupid penalty is Brad Marchand. So the thing is that the coaching staff has not necessarily zeroed in on him, but have zeroed in on the stupid penalties. And they want Washington to be taking the penalties. The interesting thing about Zdeno Chara, he's been in the league forever, and he's now playing his first year with the Washington Capitals. He really loves it there. He's been chosen for the Bill Masterson Trophy from the Washington Capitals. There's a great deal of respect for Zdeno Chara. The problem with Zdeno Chara, he's actually a really nice guy upstairs in the head. And he has a great deal of respect for his former teammates with the Boston Bruins. And you could see it in game number 1 where he wasn't the Zdeno Chara that we're used to.
Right.
He was actually making bad choices for plays and lucky that it didn't cost his team. But we'll wait and see if that ends up getting corrected at all when game 2 rolls around.
Does that come from having obviously a really close relationship with your former teammates and everything? You think he's kind of trying to dial it down a little bit to play the Bruins since he's spent so long in Boston and just hasn't.
And that's just it, Ken. I mean, if you think about it from a professional level, here's a guy who knows that he can railroad anybody in the league.
Right.
He can hurt anybody in the league. But the thing is that he's protected these other players on the Boston Bruins squad for so many years that it's still, he doesn't see the different jersey yet when he's playing against the two.
Right.
So
he reminds me of Andre the Giant.
Yeah. And I mean, nicest guy you'll ever meet. During the, I want to say the All-Star break, he actually came back. He played his junior hockey here with the Prince George Cougars, but he came back. And John Cooper was actually talking about Zdeno Chara because they both came back to Prince George and happened to be here at the same time. And it's really, really cool. But like Zdeno Chara is that nice of a guy that he hasn't forgot the people that he spent time with in his junior career when he first came over from Slovakia.
I liked him as soon as he left Ottawa.
Originally drafted by the New York Islanders, goes to Ottawa, spent a number of years in Ottawa, went to Boston. I didn't think he was going to do as well as he did while he was in Boston, but certainly he did. That's where, when you think of this guy ending up in the Hockey Hall of Fame, it'll be because of his years with the Boston Bruins and bringing a Stanley Cup trophy back there in 2011. I don't know that, with his age and everything else, and certainly his nicer mindset, if this is going to play out in Washington the same way it played out in Boston. It'll be interesting. Alexander Ovechkin, I mean, he's got gray hair, but other than that, you wouldn't take any years off of him, that's for sure.
Absolutely not. He's one of the most flamboyant players in the league right now. I love watching Ovechkin
Personally,
play.
I think one of the keys to the series maybe TJ Oshie.
Yeah. So we touched on Vegas and Minnesota as well. So I want to touch right now on Colorado and St. Louis. Colorado, Honda West. Colorado went on a 5-game winning streak and stole the President's Trophy away from the Vegas Golden Knights at the end of the season. Both teams finished with 82 points. So the Colorado Avalanche ended up winning it on the tiebreaker for head-to-head matchups with Vegas. So very, very interesting that Colorado heads into the postseason firing on all cylinders. So the Colorado Avalanche, when you look at the Western divisions, there's technically two if you want to look at it from that bracket that I had that's kind of all wrong. The Colorado Avalanche, the St. Louis Blues are going to be playing each other. This could be one of those series where it goes 4 straight.
Is Colorado the favorite to win the West and go on to win the Cup? I mean, everyone's favorite coach, Mr. What's his face? Oh God, I can't think of his name off the top of my head now. Why? I don't know. Anyway, he's on ESPN all the time. Oh God, the Mr. Mullet. I call him. He's picked color. He picked like Barry Melrose. Thank you.
Melrose.
Yeah.
Barry Melrose picked Colorado in the beginning of the season to win the Cup. And are they the favorite going into these playoffs, you think?
Colorado is, and I have to stand corrected. I just realized that the bracket actually puts them on the right-hand side. So they'll end up coming in from what would be considered the East. And Edmonton will come in from the West. And if you want an early prediction for Stanley Cup matchup, it's the Colorado Avalanche and the Edmonton Oilers.
I'm here for it.
Colorado won the President's Trophy. I know that.
Yeah,
the number one seed overall.
It just meant they stole it away from Vegas.
Yep. Last second flurry finish.
Yeah.
Ron, I just a quick question, man. I'm wondering if we could just kind of look at the season leaders, the top 5 points getters.
Let's wrap up one more division first before we look at all of that.
We got to wait for the propaganda. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
Propaganda's coming soon, folks.
We'll just get into one more. right now, keep looking over my head. Florida is hosting the Tampa Bay Lightning in their game one. And the only other game one that hasn't been played is also from that Discover Central division. Carolina Hurricanes end up winning that division with 80 points, one better than the Florida Panthers, 5 better than Tampa Bay, and a whole ton more than the Nashville Predators. Carolina is expected, Rod Brindamore is expected to carry this team through the first round easily over the Nashville Predators. But I mean, again, you can never count anybody in or out. I mean, that's why we played on a sheet of ice and not just on a sheet of paper. But you know, if you look at the Tampa Bay Lightning a couple of years ago, President's Cup trophy winners, they get swept. You look at the Pittsburgh Penguins a couple of years ago, or was it last year even? They meet the New York Islanders, and they were the odds-on favorite, and they get swept by the Islanders. So again, all I'm trying to say is don't ever underestimate the power of playing a game in the second season, where everybody starts with 0 wins and 0 losses, and that first game is monumental. So if Nashville has a way of going into Carolina and stealing one, this could be a whole new series. But Carolina should come out of that one. I wanted to kind of leave the Florida Tampa Bay a little bit, and I mean, I keep checking over my shoulder at the score because the game is on right now. But you got to kind of feel that John Cooper has what it takes to get that team back in line, back in check. And we saw it a few years ago with the Chicago Blackhawks, where they stumbled through the first round and then just got progressively better and better and better with each round on their way to hoist another Stanley Cup, when nobody thought they could get 3 or 4 Stanley Cups in 4 or 5 years. So the Tampa Bay Lightning are the defending Stanley Cup champions. Kucherov has been a huge disappointment, obviously, for the season, not being able to lace them up. He's back in the lineup, and we'll wait and see what that entails. But the Florida Panthers, and I know that Scott's not going to like this, but the Florida Panthers have kind of walked in and have been extremely quiet about what they've been doing. There hasn't been quickly, even though they're playing the Tampa Bay Lightning right now, can you name one player from the Florida Panthers?
No.
That's what I mean. They've just kind of quietly gone about the season, done what they needed to do, and now they're in the postseason as the home favorites for this round against the Tampa Bay Lightning, and they're taking it to heart. 18 shots on goal in the first period. They lead Tampa Bay Lightning 2-1. Tampa Bay has only had 10 shots on goal. So through 20 minutes of play, Florida leads Tampa Bay by a score of 2-1.
Yep.
Can John Cooper get the Tampa Bay Lightning back on track? One game doesn't determine a series. One period doesn't determine a game. But
and they got Stamkos. They got Stamkos and Kucherov back for the playoffs. Stamkos. Excuse me.
Stamkos.
Yeah. Yeah. Stamkos and Kucherov back for the playoffs. Hedman's back tonight after being gone with an injury for a couple of days, couple of games. So I mean, and these guys are going to be rusty. So I don't know. I mean, I said in my video last night that this series scares me, along with if they have to face Carolina in the second round. That scares me as well. They got a tough road to haul to get past and into the conference finals just with the first 2 rounds, and it frightens me because both those teams are so good and so they're scoring machines. So it scares me. That's a bit. That's all.
Yeah. So again, like if you're looking who's coming out of each of the divisions, I mean, it's tough. Toronto and Edmonton should make it for Scotia North, and Honda West. It should be no question that it's Colorado. A little bit of a surprise, Minnesota. I think Vegas comes back. I don't see these being 1-0 games. I think Vegas comes back and wins that series. So it's going to be Colorado and Vegas trying to determine that champion. When you look at the Mass Mutual, I think Washington can do the job, do the number on the Boston Bruins. It's not going to be easy. I think the New York Islanders are going to upset the Pittsburgh Penguins. I hate saying that, but
I don't. I hate the Penguins. Go ahead.
But the New York Islanders, I think, are going to come through and meet Washington in that division, and then that leaves Carolina and Nashville. Nashville is going to win one, maybe two games, but Carolina comes out of that one. The Florida and the Tampa Bay. If you want the hardest series right now, other than Vegas and Minnesota, it's this one right here: the Florida and Tampa Bay matchup. Could go either direction, and Tampa Bay needs their players that have been missing in action to find their groove that they had last year, and Florida needs to continue to just do it quietly. I am going to go with Florida meeting Carolina in the next round.
It wouldn't surprise me. I mean, I'd love to see Lightning get it, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Panthers beat the Bolts. I wouldn't be surprised at all. I hope it doesn't happen, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Now, John wanted us to look at some regular season numbers, I believe.
Just top 5 scorers, just the
top 5 scorers. No big deal. No big deal. Because who are you going to get? I mean, who's going to be number 1? No surprise. Edmonton, Connor McDavid.
And number 2.
You know what? This is a huge number. 100-point season is big when you even have an 80-game regular season. This was 56 regular season games. He scored 33 goals, set up 72 others. So not only can he beat you with the speed, not only can he beat you with the stick, but he can beat you with the ability to set up another player. His plus minus 21, not the best on the team. I think that goes to Leon Draisaitl, if I'm not mistaken.
Second in the league.
Yeah, and Connor McDavid averaging 1.88 points per game, and 1.5 points per game for Leon Draisaitl. Surprise, surprise, I dropped this name earlier today, but Brad Marchand is the third in this list. And third with points at 69. 69. Remember, Connor McDavid is 105. We're talking 36-point differential between those two players. And somewhere in the middle is Leon Draisaitl.
And then Connor's goals away, he'd still be second in the league just with assists.
Yeah, because of 72 helpers. Yeah, right. That's right. Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews round out the top 5.
That's 4 in the top 5.
4 of the top 5, you bet. And Mitch Marner and Austin Matthews are not that far off the mark that Brad Marchand has. When you look at it, Mitch Marner has 20 goals, 47 helpers, 67 points. Austin Matthews, if I'm not mistaken, he scored the most goals this regular season. He's got 41 goals. Yeah, so his other 25 points come from setting up other players.
Ken, you muted? Can you still talk?
Who's that?
Ken, can you hear us, Ken?
What?
I thought you were muted, guys. You were mouthing something.
No, I'm here.
Okay. I thought you were saying something, but I couldn't hear you. I don't know if you were muted yourself or not.
No.
Okay. Oh God. Well, Ron,
I just wanted to post it. I just posted that I had Rod Brindamore as Coach of the Year.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. Who's Coach of the Year? Is it the coach from the Edmonton Oilers? Is it the coach from the Toronto Maple Leafs? Is it the coach from Carolina? Is it the coach from the Florida Panthers?
Yeah.
You know, like when you look at some of these teams, is it even the coach from the Colorado Avalanche? This one here is the Coach of the Year. This is going to come down to who do you think is your favorite team right now when you try and shortlist it into like 5 or 3 teams. But
Katie, Janelle, or Janelle.
If it's based on regular season games alone, it won't be the Edmonton coach. And that's because Edmonton has had good regular seasons and then shit the bed in the postseason. If you look at the Colorado Avalanche, any coach that can get the most out of their team at the end of the regular season, lots of credit goes there. Rod Brindamore did that for 2 years in a row with the Carolina Hurricanes. Is he doing it for a 3rd year in a row? Carolina finishes top in their division. Rod Brindamore is a worthy candidate for sure. Be interesting to see who wins Coach of the Year, Ken.
All right. Well, guys, we're at Pat. I knew we were going to go over a little bit, but that's okay. Ron, we want to thank you for being here tonight. We had a blast, man, as always.
Good luck on Thursday, Ron.
Good luck to you and John on Thursday night.
Crazy.
And it should be interesting. Keep in touch with you guys in the group. I'm sure you guys will be back and forth, as well as I'm sure Janelle will put her 2 cents in there as well.
I'm not anti-Montreal. And if Montreal beats Toronto, I'm kind of looking forward to the off season watching and reading the Toronto media, because hell hath no fury like the Toronto sports media when it comes to
too funny. Too
You
funny.
know, just real quickly, any player, you can ask any player in the NHL, where are the brightest spotlights? And they're always in Canada.
Yeah.
You can play for the New York Rangers, but you can still go down Broadway Street and not be recognized. You go into any city and town in Canada, and you are going to be recognized as that NHL player.
Yeah.
The spotlights that shine on players and coaching and management in Toronto and Montreal and Vancouver and Edmonton and Calgary and Winnipeg, probably in that order, are huge. They are super bright. They will shine right through people. And Jon is right. If something happens and we get this monumental disaster in Toronto, I don't know what the implications will be afterwards, because this is a team that has finally been built to win.
Yep.
this is not egotistical, but up and down the lineup, Toronto really doesn't have too much weakness in that lineup. They really don't.
No.
Ron, I'll give you my final four right quick before we leave.
Sure.
I got Toronto, Colorado, Pittsburgh, and Carolina.
You're going to go with Pittsburgh, eh?
Wow.
Pittsburgh over the Islanders, really.
Yeah. Well, Pittsburgh over the Islanders, but Pittsburgh over Colorado as well. Oh, no, he said Final Four would be Colorado. Sorry.
Yeah.
So Pittsburgh, Colorado, Carolina, and Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. No disrespect, Ken, but that's it. That's easy. That's just taking the top team from each division.
Throw in Edmonton in there, man. Come on, do it.
I'm a chalk guy sometimes. So.
Ron throwing the smack at Ken. I love it. That's even better.
Yeah, I know. I don't feel good about that. I'm just kind of like pointing out the obvious.
Hey, I can take it.
All right, fellas, we're going to call it a night. Thanks, everybody, for showing up. Ron, again, thank you very much for being here. I expect to see you again sometime down the line during the playoffs to talk some more hockey. I really appreciate you being here.
Yeah, when you're closer to wrapping up the first round would not be a bad idea.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to call it a night, folks. Thanks, everybody who showed up tonight. We appreciate you. On behalf of Elliot, who's down and out with an illness, we wish him well and wish him to get better. On behalf of Ken and Jon and, of course, Mr. Ron Gallo, I am the sports nerd, and we are